Hey guys, today's topic of the video is going to be about an important topic of psychoanalysis, which is Sigmund Freud. So in this video we'll be discussing the whole achievement of Sigmund Freud in the field of psychoanalysis and how we can apply this topic, psychoanalysis, into literature and why it's an important part of literary theory. So starting right from the introduction, but before starting I will suggest you to subscribe to this channel if you are liking my content, and I will also be mentioning the reading list or recommended reading for this video in the description below. If you want to make a 100% command on this topic, you should watch that recommended list so that you get an excellent approach to this topic. So this series will be covering psychoanalysis. First part of this series contains Sigmund Freud. Second part will be having about Jacques Lacan, and third will be about the real, the imaginary and the symbolic. So starting from the introduction of Sigmund Freud. So Sigmund Freud is one of the important thinker of the 20th century, and his versions of ideas have permeated every aspect of Western culture, and it is most likely that you must have listened about the words such as Freudian sleep, dream analysis and the world, the unconscious. So these three words are much more related to Sigmund Freud. So moving to the next slide. So Freud was a doctor as well as a philosopher. Being a doctor, he was interested in the medical illnesses of his patients and finding their cures and mind, and his focus was on mind and body. But being a philosopher, he was much more interested in the mind and civilization, that how a human mind and his psychology impact creating a civilization, how culture and civilization are formed. His work, Totem and Taboo, is about the taboos and the religious beliefs that are in a society. I will also make an introductory video on that book as well. It's a very interesting book. So he is always about the universal truth about self and how culture and civilization work in wake of these psychological aspects. So one of his important book is Civilization and Its Discontents, in which he discusses two kind of ideas. First is the pleasure principle, and the second is the reality principle. So civilization is based on two principles. Reality principle is what do so pleasure principle tells you about do what feels good, do what pleases you. There are certain desires in human body, and a person and an individual want to satisfy these desires, and after the satisfaction of these desires a person gets a pleasure. On the other hand, there is another concept, reality principle. Reality principle subordinates pleasure to society, to rules, to restrictions and to limitations. Reality principles tell us that what need to be done. Pleasure principle tell us do what you like. But reality principle tell us that do what needs to be done. What society wants from us, what should we do right now. That's reality principle. So I will explain that from an example. But there is another term, sublimation. Sublimation is when we subordinate or we ignore our pleasures principle to reality principle. Like we ignore our pleasure drives in order to attain some great place in reality, in society. So we have to just neglect what our pleasures are and focus on something productive in civilization and society. So the desire isn't and should not be fulfilled, and one turns the energies into something useful and productive. So from the energies of our drives or our pleasures, they are transformed into something productive or something important and useful. I will tell you an example of this. It is mentioned here on slide as well. For example, sex. Sex is pleasurable. Sexual pleasure is a basic urge since our birth, and I will explain that as well. How is sexual pleasure is an important feature of an individual since its birth. Humans can't have sex all the time. Alright, there is no place of doing sex all the time. Society can't afford it. So what you do? If doing sex all the time, we won't be work, we won't play, we won't indulge ourselves in writing some research paper. If we do sex all the time, we can't create a good piece of poetry, we can't write a book, we can't make a beautiful building, we can't make a painting. So what we do, we sublimate this sexual pleasure to reality principle. We turn sexual energy, that libido, into something like writing a paper or playing sports or playing hockey or playing football or painting something or cooking something. We just turn all our sexual energies into something useful and something productive, and that's how a civilization is born. I think it's Emile Durkheim who defines culture and civilization. He says that what is human made is culture. So what human does, by sublimating his pleasure principles into reality principle, that individual creates something constructive for society, and so the culture is born, a civilization is born. If we do sex all the time, we won't be able to do anything great. Alright, so if there is no sublimation, if we carry on doing sex all the time or satisfying desires all the time, there would not be any civilization. I hope you got my point. So moving towards the next slide. So pleasure principle means that do things that feels good, but reality principle says that channel that sexual energy into something else. But desire for pleasure is not vanished here. You still, after transforming your energies into something useful, your desires for pleasure isn't yet fully transformed into creating a painting or doing something else. But that desires which are not expressed or fulfilled becomes unfulfilled desires. And Sigmund Freud says that they are repressed desires, they are unfulfilled desires, and they gather into a particular place in our mind called the unconscious. So Sigmund Freud is interested in doing operation of this, or in doing something, the study of the unconscious mind. So Sigmund Freud is interested in the unfulfilled desires that are living in our unconscious. So that's the explanation of this slide. So moving towards the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is what you can't know about it with direct thinking, but there are indirect ways. You can't there are three parts of our mind. One is conscious, that that contain what we are thinking right now. It contains what we do. But there is another mind, the subconscious mind. Alright, the subconscious mind get activated when we are sleeping. Alright, and one is the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind contain all the things that we are listening but we don't remember. Alright, the unconscious mind contain all the unfulfilled desires. Every kind of thing is happening in unconscious, but we don't know. So I will tell you that how we can understand what's happening inside the unconscious mind. Sigmund Freud said that how to get into the unconscious mind. There is a book by Sigmund Freud, The Interpretation of Dreams. Dreams are the symbolic fulfillment of desires or wishes that are unfulfilled because they are repressed. Because of reality principle, we are not able to express our desires, so they become dream, and dreams comes to us in our night and they are expressed in some form. So it's something like that, right? So dreams, by remembering our dreams, or by a discussion about our dreams to a psychoanalytic, or we can also think about our dreams, so we can know that what is happening in our unconscious. Dreams contain repressed wishes or desires that can't be expressed or fulfilled directly into consciousness because they are forbidden. They are not allowed to be expressed. So they come in our dreams in strange ways, and often in disguise, hidden or symbolic ways. Alright, so in this slide, how do dreams disguise forbidden wishes? That how are the dreams symbolic of the forbidden or unexpressed wishes or unfulfilled wishes? So there are two mechanisms, condensation and displacement. So defining condensation is when a whole set of images is packed into a single image or statement. Like when a complex meaning is condensed into a simpler one. Just like a metaphor. You see rose, you see that it is love. Alright, so when you see rose into your dreams, in some circumstances it means love. So condensation means the complex idea of love is condensed, is compressed into the symbol of flower, into a symbol of flower, and flower act as a metaphor. Alright, and there is a second type of expressing unfulfilled desire into dreams, and that is displacement. Displacement is where an image or symbol gets pushed onto something associated with it, or it displaces the original image. For example, queen or royalty. When you see queen in your dream, you will see that the dream is some kind of associated with power, royalty, or a kind of authority thing. And when you see royalty, you see a page mentioning some kind of royal names, prince, princess. You will see that it belongs to something queen or something authoritative. Alright, so when you see ships, that battleships in your dreams, you will see the political condition or military condition of your country or the world or whatever. So that's called displacement. A figure, an idea or image is displaced with something near image or idea, and it is also called metonymy in linguistics or in grammar. So condensation is also called metaphorical dreams, so which are similar to dissociers, syntagmatic relation. I have also made a video on Ferdinand de Saussure. I will mention the link in the recommended reading so that you can get this point. I have explained that point there very well. And displacement and metonymy dreams are similar to dissociers, associative relationships. So yes, there is another way of getting into dreams as well. In the book by Sigmund Freud, The Psychopathology of Everyday Life, he mentions some ways of knowing the unconscious mind. One is parapraxes. It includes slip of tongue, mistakes, errors in speech, or errors in or mistakes in reading or writing. So parapraxis contains slip of tongue. We sometimes mistake a word for something else, like we commit a joke sometimes. So that also contains that also mention what is in our unconscious mind. We commit mistakes, little mistakes. We commit errors in speaking, reading and writing, and that contains what is in our unconscious mind. So they are not incidences or coincidences. These errors or these slip of tongues are not our coincidences or like incidences. They are in our unconscious mind. They are coming with something important. They reveal what desires of us are unfulfilled. So I hope that you get this point. In this slide, the second point is the book of Sigmund Freud, jokes and their relation to the unconscious. There is another way into the unconscious mind as well, and that are jokes, and that includes the repressed desires. We sometimes can't say a thing to someone because of the respect we have about that person, or we can't openly say this thing about that person, but we sometimes do a kind of joke. We laugh at it, and what we want to say about that person, it is also conveyed. So in this slide there is a short kind of summary kind of is given in which I explained earlier in the last slide. It contains the ways into the unconscious. First is dream, second is parapraxis, and third is joke. And why do we psychoanalyze a text? Because the language, the kind of language, the kinds of puns, slip of tongues or displacement like metaphors and metonymy is used in a language. These things are, when they are mentioned in a novel, in a play or in a poem, we get to know about the repressed desires of the character or sometimes the writer as well. So that's why psychoanalysis is important to literature. So guys, from there we will be starting our next part of Sigmund Freud psychoanalytical theory, which is much more based on sexual pleasure and sex. So starting with this slide, so Sigmund Freud says that no matter whatever route you take into the subconscious mind, you will find sex. The unconscious mind contains the primary repressed desires that are sexual or instinctual. So primary repressed desires contains the desires that are coming to the unconscious, or the desires that are unfulfilled since the birth of an individual. Alright, so the primary repressed desires into the unconscious are sexual. They appear in fundamental acts such as nurturing. Like nurturing means that the mother breastfeeding an infant, it produces pleasure for an individual. So the fundamental act through which an individual, an infant, pleases itself is the process of nurturing. It contains the pleasure, it contains the breastfeeding which mother provides to an infant. So, and it produces pleasure for a baby. So because there are erogenic zones. Erogenic zones are the zones, are the organs or the parts of our body that contain that produce sexual pleasure, that enhances the sexual pleasure. First is mouth, and the other are the sexual are the genetic parts of an individual. So mouth is a primary erogenic zone, and through mouth the baby is taking milk from mother, and this bound is not that of hunger, and this relationship between the mother and baby is not that of hunger, but of the bound between the bound of sexual pleasure or libidinal, or the baby's libido. The baby's libido contains the sexual pleasures for baby. So baby is associated with mother not for hunger but to fulfill its sexual desires. For the further understanding of erogenic zones, I have made this slide, and it corresponds to these three erogenic zones in an individual body that are equal, that are parallel to the childhood ages development from 2 to 5 ages. So first erogenic zone is oral, third which is mouth, second is anal, and third is phallic. The oral zone, the oral erogenic zone is, and that part of libido, that part of the child development starts right after its birth. When a child is born, his desire for oral pleasure is produced. So the experience of breastfeeding come into this part. The child experiences the pleasure in breastfeeding because his mouth is giving that baby a pleasure, a sense of pleasure. So incorporation is the term we use for this part. Incorporation means taking things in body, like taking the mother's breast in body to take pleasure, like taking things in. And the boundaries between self and other is not recognized. So what is self and what is other? Self is the baby itself, self of the baby. And I will discuss this theme into Jacques Lacan's video as well. So here is a small kind of introduction. So self is the self of the baby, the self, and other is what is not self. The baby, what is not baby is other. The other. Alright. So baby, when he is is little, he is an oral phase, is not, he does not distinguish between himself, herself, itself and the mother. So that baby thinks that that baby and the breast of the mother is same thing. So that baby does not feel some kind of disgust and hatred from this breast or mother. So so that was oral phase. Second is anal phase. Anal phase starts when a baby starts, I repeat that anal phase starts when the baby starts toilet training. The baby starts learning boundaries between itself and the other. So he starts expelling things. First phase was incorporating, taking things in, and the other phase is pushing things outward. So that anal phase containing the defecating process or excretory process, the expelling things, pushing things out of itself and taking pleasure from that. Alright, so from there the baby start knowing difference between itself and the outside. So the boundaries between self and other is defined in this phase, and this phase carries aggression and anger as well. I will explain that later. Third phase is phallic phase, and it starts with 3 to 5 age. So penis in boys and clitoris in girls becomes the aerogenic zones in phallic phase. It leads towards the genital, I have discussed earlier, genital masturbation, and that provides a gateway towards adult sexuality, towards the heterosexual reproductive individual. Alright, so that's what I will discuss that later as well. So that were the 3 phases of aerogenic zones. I hope that is clear to you as perfectly. So in the book 3 Essays on the Theory of Sexuality, Sigmund Freud tells us about the polymorphously perverse individuals. What are perverse people? Perverse are the corrupt or not normal. The perverse people are actually the abnormal people. So the abnormal, I will put commas to whenever I will mention normal, because normal are what? Are those people who fulfill the reality principle. So in this theory, normal are those people who fulfill what is the demand of society. So who are the polymorphously perverse people? Individual, a being whose sexual or libidinal drives are relatively unorganized and are directed to anyone and every object that might provide that person sexual pleasure. So those are the polymorphously perverse people. They are not concerned what society wants from them. They will go unorganized. They are not developed that perfectly in the whole theory, which I will be showing you in the next slides. So those are the polymorphously perverse individual. Child experience any of these erogenic zones, and these erogenic zones are stimulated, and those pleasure persist in adult life. So from childhood, the individual learns that how to stimulate these erogenic zones. So Sigmund Freud says that in this slide, polymorphously perverse children are pleasure seeking children or individuals. They please themselves whenever they want. They just don't care about repressions. So any of their desire is not left unfulfilled. They have fulfilled all of their desires and they therefore does not contain any unconscious. So there is no unfulfilled desire into their unconscious because they have fulfilled everything they wanted. So that's the perk of being a polymorphously perverse individual. So without the unconscious or repression or reality principle, there happens no gender of a child. So gender of a child depends mostly into the reality, is determined by reality principle. Alright, so all libidinal desires are masculine. I will explain this from there in the slide. Because children will go after anything since no repression is happening. So the first experience of pleasure from mother, so the child becomes incestuous. So what happens with a polymorphously perverse child, that child will go after anything that provide him pleasure. That child will go after doll or after mother and will be an incestuous person because he has not set the boundaries between the pleasure principle and the reality principle. That child is doing what he wants, and so there is no repression. So the child will experience pleasure from mother, and so the child will become incestuous in societies. So the oral contact, so via oral contact, that child become aware of its sexual orientation. So mother take child aware of its anal zone because of changing diapers and toilet training, and mother makes child aware of its genital by giving it pleasure by bathing and cleaning. So mother becomes the first love of a child because of all these things, because the mother make a baby aware of its erogenic zones. Mother is the first individual or the first thing that has made the baby aware of its mouth via breastfeeding. The mother, when she changes diapers and clean the baby's anus after toileting, the mother gives pleasure to child by making him aware of its anal phase. And the mother, when she bath or clean the baby's body, the child gets pleasure from that as well. So you can also think that polymorphously perverse individuals or child ages ends at early development, like ends at 5 to 6 age, and now the child gets into something else, heterosexual reproductive individual. So the latency period, the child latency period means and Sigmund Freud's believe that latency period occurs between approximately the age of 7 and adolescence. So in this period there happens a reduced sexuality. So in other words, we can say that in latency period, instinctual drives or libidinal exploration of a child becomes at a hold. They get a hold. So childs don't go after every object of sexual pleasure, and anymore, that the child is not anymore that direct and constant towards something that give him sexual pleasure. So puberty, when it hits that individual, and it's the final period. Puberty makes a child, it makes an individual to search for its sexual pleasure once again. So there, the search for pleasure, sexual pleasure is revived in when the puberty hits an individual. So child's instincts are changed into, an adult one, and they keeps on focus, but they keeps focus on the normal and social aims. So in puberty, they just hide their desires from the society and acting as a normal day in secret. Just do masturbation, like which also comes under the definition of autoeroticism, pleasing yourself and your genitals by your own without requiring someone else. So that's coming under the masturbation. And at puberty, a person also gains this pleasure, sexual pleasure from other object, and other object mean other person. There is Sartre's, Jean-Paul Sartre, who is a famous existentialist philosopher. He says that and in love a person see himself an object and other person a subject. And in sexual activity, in sexual pleasure, in gaining sexual pleasure, or in intercourse, in sexual intercourse, a person see himself a subject or other person an object, a thing. So that was the logic behind using the word object for another person. That other person can be, can be male or female, anyone. So the reproductive heterosexual intercourse is when all erotic feelings from erogenic zones get subordinated to genital zone. When you stimulate your other erogenic zones like mouth or something else, you just get charged genitally and you just go for sexual intercourse. And there happens a foreplay, the concept of pleasure or foreplay happens, and here a person becomes normal adult. So guys, this topic is about, from there on we will be discussing the psychosexual theory of Sigmund Freud, which is the last part of this video series and this whole video. So in first part which I have covered is about the psychoanalysis, and mostly it's mostly about the finding of the unconscious mind of an individual, which contains unfulfilled desire or the repressed desires. And mostly the topic of that part was about the dreams and the dream analysis and all the other techniques like slip of tongue, parapraxes, and etc. that happens to a person, which is used by the psychoanalytics for the interpretation of their unconscious mind. Second part of the video was about the erogenic zones, which was mostly about the psychosexual developmental stages of an organism, which was first the oral stage, the anal stage and phallic stage, the latency stage and the puberty stage. So from now on we will be discussing a comprehensive detail of the psychosexual theory of Sigmund Freud, and in this topic we will be covering Oedipus Complex and the Castration complex as well. So starting from the project of psychoanalysis. So in the project of psychoanalysis put forward by Sigmund Freud, he describes that how a polymorphously perverse incest desiring animal or incest desiring individual develop into a self with firm sense of gender differentiation, with sexual desire and channeled into proper or subordinate to the reality principle. I have discussed reality in the first part of this video series. So the project of psychoanalysis tells us that how an incestuous individual which is mostly relying on his mother or her mother in the initial stages of his life or her life, is how it is converted into a non-incestuous reproductive or heterosexual individual. So how does one just leaves the first love of himself or herself? First love is the mother of an individual. So from now on I will be discussing that aspect. So psychoanalytic theory is about the how gendered and sexual self is formed. So main concern of this part of the video will be about the how a gendered and sexual self is formed and cured those who are not normal to the society, who are not normal to the reality principle. So in this slide, in the next slide, Sigmund Freud's field of interest. What was Sigmund Freud's field of interest? He defines perversions as an expression or acting on the sexual desires that are socially inappropriate or abnormal or illegal. And neurosis, he tells us about a term, neurosis. What is neurosis? The derives that are repressed into the unconscious, that is called neurosis. So the drives, the pleasure principle that are repressed by the reality principle in the unconscious are called neurosis, and this process is called neurosis, and it is helpful so that the unconscious spends a lot of energy to stop them from coming back into the unconscious. Keep in mind this sentence that it takes that the neurosis is a very powerful process. It is a very powerful process that how a desire is from the conscious is put into the unconscious. It takes a lot of energy, and brain and the body provides such an energy to an individual to repress these desires into the unconscious mind, and that energy will be that happens, and that energy is responsible for the several different condition in humans, which I will be discussing later in this video. So this energy which is spent, it does not allow, it stops the desires coming back to the conscious. Okay, so that was the neurosis and the energy which it uses. So such effort can end the energy when the energy which the unconscious uses to not allow the wishes into the conscious, that also causes hysteria, paranoia and obsession complexes, which I will discuss in the video later. So starting with Oedipus Complex, it's not about what all the internet explains to you, so it's a new kind of version. It's not a new kind of version, it's a Sigmund Freud version, Oedipus Complex. So what is the need of Oedipus Complex? Why it happens to an individual? It constructs a properly gendered and sexual self it takes a person from incestuous relationship with mother to a normal, a properly gendered sexual individual. So what is sexual? So what happens? So at what stage Oedipus Complex happens? It happens at the end of phallic stage and the polymorphously complex phase. All right. So it forces child into the latency stage. I have discussed latency stage in the second part of this video. You should watch that. Not of this video, it is uploaded in the description below. So the foundation of the Oedipus complex. So the foundation of Oedipus complex is about castration and penis envy. I will discuss that later as well. So both for males and females. So but both male and female have penis. Explanation, I will put an explanation here. Development stages, it's a development stage from incestuous to outside the family exogamous individual. So so an individual starting its life from the relationship with mother to and then a transformation happens, and that person starts searching someone from outside the family for relationship and sexual desires. So that Oedipus complex forms sexual desires and it is from the state of nature to a civilized and cultured one. So what is the state, what is the natural state of individual sexual orientation? It is the incestuous one, which is happening at that person's childbirth, when that person is feeding on his mother or her mother's breast milk. So that is a state of nature, and then Oedipus complex happens and that person is transformed into a civilized or cultured state. So in Oedipus complex we will learn these 3 to 4 things. First is that how desires are repressed in the unconscious mind, how unconscious mind is formed. First thing we will learn from Oedipus complex. From Oedipus complex we will learn the second thing, that how girls and boys learn to desire outside families. Alright. Third is how they learn to desire for opposite sex. And fourth is how superego and the conscience or the reality principle is formed. So these 4 things will be covering into the Oedipus complex. So in this slide we will be discussing that how Oedipus complex is formed. So Oedipus complex is mostly about so it is different in girls and boys. So alright, so what is masculine is active and what is feminine is passive. Alright, I have discussed that in earlier video, that about in Derrida's concept, in Derrida's video, the notion of center. You can watch that video, the link is given in the description. Derrida says that all the Western philosophy is formed on the binary pairs, binary oppositions. Alright, what is on the left side of the slash is superior and what is on the right side of the slash is inferior. So presence is superior to absence. Boys contain penis which is present in their body, which is visible in their body, and girls, they don't contain penis, they contain other things like clitoris and vagina, but penis is not visible in their body. So the penis is absent in women. So Sigmund Freud and Lacan says that Jacques Lacan says that the women are inferior than men, and the women's sexual pleasure is passive, but men's sexual pleasure is active. I will also make a video on the criticism which feminist, post-structuralist feminists give to them, and you should watch that video as well. So so both sexes are masculine In the birth, both sexes are masculine according to the sexuality when they are infants. When they are infants, so both sexes, girls and boys both, they both operate on the laws of masculine pleasure. Alright, so they seek pleasure through masturbation. Whenever something touches their genital, they feel pleasure. So Sigmund Freud says that so far as the autoerotic and masturbatory manifestation of sexuality are concerned, we might lay it down that sexuality of little girls is of a wholly masculine character. I hope you understand that. Indeed, if we were able to give a more definite connotation to the concept of masculine and feminine, it would even be possible to maintain that libido is invariably and necessarily of a masculine nature. So he says that the sexuality and the libido and the pleasure of both girls and boys is masculine. So there is no difference between the sexual pleasure of girls and boys. All right. So so he says further, whether it occurs in men or women, and irrespective of whether its object is a man or a woman, both are masculine. So it places a superiority of men or masculine in both the gender, which find a great criticism in the post-structuralist feminism. I will make a video on this topic as well. So he gives an explanation that why he says that the sexual parts and the pleasure in girls is as well masculine. Boys are masculine, yes it is admittable. But how the sexual parts and sexual pleasure is masculine in girls? He says that clitoris in females is a miniature penis, is a small kind of penis. Alright, and it is equal to the penis in boys. So what happens in puberty? In puberty, girls' masturbation, their desire for masturbation is repressed because of the cultural demand from a girl. She is not allowed to please herself or touch her body. So all cultures have a similar kind of laws about girls, that they cannot stimulate their clitoris for the sake of masturbation and sexual pleasure. There is a shame and kind of disgust attached to it, that how a girl becomes feminine or passive, or how that happens if a girl is, Sigmund Freud says, is masculine in pleasure, and a girl is masculine in pleasure and masculine in her genitals. So how girls become feminine and passive? So in puberty I will explain that. Yes. So in puberty stage in boys, they go on and on because there is no cultural boundary set for them. They can explore their sexuality openly. There is no repression happening for them. They can masturbate and they can talk about their genitals or their sexual desires anywhere. So they can just go on, and they have a high libido because there is no repression happening in their body and in their society. So they can express that thing as completely, and that's why they have high libido. But there is more sexual repression in girls, but excitement is more in boys. So the culture represses the desire in girls, but it enhances the desires in boys. So that happens in cultures. So at adult sexuality, clitoris stimulation and foreplay for pleasure or foreplay leads vaginal stimulation and reproductive, and that leads to reproductive heterosexual intercourse that produces a new baby, a new individual. So the clitoris stimulation in girls as to conclude this slide, so clitoris stimulation in girls is infantile. That infantiles mean it used to happen in their childhood, but not anymore, and that is neurotic, and that is repressed. Neurotic means it is repressed. So clitoris stimulation is neurotic in girls. So that's the reason that why females are most prone to hysteria, because there is too much repression going on in girls. Alright, so the kind of frustration and hysteria and other kind of mental illnesses they face because of, Sigmund Freud says that it is all because of this repression, all because of this neurosis. They have to use much energy to keep their desire in the unconscious, so that it does not fall back to the conscious. So that energy causes hysteria in girls. So female at puberty, they switch erotogenic zones from clitoris to vagina. So clitoris is not allowed for them to stimulate, so and vagina is demanded. So cultures and societies demand girls' vagina because a penetration in it causes a reproduction. All right, and it's a place where a male get excited. So that's useful for society. So society allows the vaginal stimulation but not clitoris stimulation. So first thing is that they just leave, they have to leave their clitoris, because there is a lot of cultural repression happening to her, and she switches her pleasure place from clitoris to vagina first, and in the but boys, all from their infant stage to adult till death, they stick to one penis, so there is no repression for them. Alright, so boys don't use that energy to repress their desires and fear not falling it back into the conscious, but girls require a lot of that. So that's why females are more prone to hysteria. Freud says again, the fact that women change their leading erotogenic zones in this way, together with the wave of repression in puberty, which as it were put aside their childish masculinity, are the chief determinants of greater proneness of women to neurosis and especially to hysteria. These determinants, therefore, are intimately related to the essence of femininity. Alright, I hope you understand this quotation. I have explained that well. So in this slide, so I will explain you further cause of hysteria, because women don't only shift her pleasure organ but the love person as well. It's called double shifting. First she shift her pleasure organ, and second I will tell you in this slide. So women have to shift objects like from in the childhood, boys and girls both were fed by mother. You understand that? Both got aware of their anal, phallic and oral, anal and phallic zones. Alright, because of mother. Mother became their first love. In society, boys are allowed to marry or to have a sexual desire with females, so they stick to mother. But in societies, in cultures, girls are not supposed to love another woman, which can be their mother, just like boys. So in childhood, boys and girls both shared same object of love, which is their mother. But in adult males, they keep loving female, but in boys, the adult males, they keep loving female bodies as love object. So for them, but the only thing changes is the one female body to another female body, from mother to outside females. They just turn the relation, alright, from mother to body of another female bodies. But adult females shift their erotic attachment to male bodies to develop normally. So they change the whole gender. They change the love object, which is their mother, to a total 180-degree opposite gender, male. I hope you understand that. It's not a difficult concept. So it caused a double shifting. First, girls just switch their sexual organ, clitoris, to vagina, and second shift happened when they changed their sexual desire from one female to a male body. So this double neurosis or double shifting, so this double shifting or double repression requires a lot of energy. A lot of repression happened, so a lot of energy is required to keep this repression into the unconscious. So normal women are neurotic. So normal women are prone to hysteria and mental illnesses. So shifting happens through Oedipus Complex. I have tell you that the double shifting happens and that happens. So how that happens? It happens through Oedipus Complex. It happens at phallic stage, when boys and girls have same phallic organ, penis or clitoris. Alright, the children notice that there is something structural difference between the boy and the girl. That the boy have a long kind of thing, which is penis, and girl have short thing or don't have the long thing, it is clitoris. So boys contain, so boys present penis and girls absent penis. So before this revelation, before this knowing, that before this realization that they have penis and the other don't have, they were thinking, before all this, they both think that both are equal. So both are same things. So what do boys think of clitoris when they see a little girl, that why she don't have penis? He might think that perhaps it is cut by some authoritative or powerful person because of some punishment. Let me explain to you. So after seeing girls' clitoris or the lack of penis, boys think that they think, for them it is a new knowledge. They think that someone has cut off girls' penis because of some punishment or because of some crime they have done, or some transgression or sin they have done. So someone has cut their penis, and someone may cut the boy's penis as well, but I will not do that sin. A boy think in his mind, I will not do this thing. I will resist that sin. So what happens in the Oedipus complex in boys? So at phallic stage, he discovers the phallic and genital masturbation. He wants to direct his genital desire to his mother, because his first love is his mother, and so he wants to fulfill all his sexual desires from his mother. But he knows that his chief rival or his chief enemy in the house is his father. The father is the husband of his mother. So he will not let him do that. His father will not let the son or the boy do that, and he will cut his penis otherwise. If the father caught him fulfilling sexual desires with his mother. So the boy want to get rid of his father and can marry, so that he can marry his mother, and which is his sexual possession. It is inspired from the Greek play by Sophocles, the Oedipus the king, Oedipus the Tyrannus. So Oedipus complex in boys is about to kill the father and marry or fulfill the sexual or libidinal desire with mother. So after this Oedipus complex happens castration complex, which is very important. It says that the boy has directed all his sexual desires to his mother, but he has a hatred and an aggression towards his rival father. So it makes him think that the girl's castration, the girl's cutting off penis has happened because they had tried to commit the sexual, because the girl has tried to fulfill their sexual desire with the mother. So they think that as a punishment their father has cut their penis. So the boy start fearing his father, that his father will cut the penis, and he will know that the boy, because he will know that the boy wants to kill me and marry his mother. So the castration complex is all about that. So in castration complex, in the last stages of castration complex, what happens that the boy, the little baby start choosing between his penis and the sexual desire with mother, and the boy desiring the mother and losing his penis. So he has to choose between these two things. So at the end of the Oedipus complex, the unconscious mind no longer desires mother, because his penis is very important for him. He can find someone else for love, some other woman for love. But what if he does not have this penis? What will we do with that? All right. So his sexual intercourse with mother is not the priority anymore. He wants to save his penis so that he can go on into the sexual intercourse with any other woman. So the superego is formed. How the superego is formed, or the conscious is formed, when the prohibition of behavior from society and laws inhibits the inhibition in the superego happens. So all the desires are repressed. All the desire for the boy, what was his desire? To marry or to have a sexual intercourse with his mother. But that desire is repressed because he has to save his penis. So his incestuous desires are no more, but these pleasures are repressed into the unconscious, but they can be found in neurosis, in sublimation neurosis, in dreams, reaction formation, dreams, slip of tongue and jokes as well. So that happened into the mind of a boy. So there are three parts of the brain. First is the unconscious, second is the superego, and the third is the sense of self, or the conscious, what a person does. So the boy or the son identify with father. So the boy think that the father is an authority, or what he does is a law, what the father does is a law. So he admits that his father is an authority if he want to, and the father has the authority to cut the boy's penis as well. So he is afraid of the authority of father, and he goes outside the home to find some other sexual partner for him. So that happens at the end of this Oedipus complex, and prohibition, the incest prohibition happens, and the boy behaves good. So it was all about the boy's sexual development, and now we'll be turning into the girl's sexual development. And it's complicated because double shifting happens, and because of first from clitoris to vagina and then to mother to male body. How that all happens. Girls notice the boy's penis and they think that girls like it. Girls think that they like it. They don't have penis, and girls instantly, and they at that exact time they think that it is a lake that don't contain, it's an absence of penis. So they are not superior like boys. So penis is superior for them because it is present, and they don't have it, so they are inferior. They think like that. So penis envy happens. Why I don't have penis? That is a statement in their mind about penis. That is about penis envy. That why I don't have penis, and girls start wanting penis. But how that all happens? So there are different thought. The psychosis is happening that someday the girls will get it or accept it normal, accept her castration. That one day it will happen that they will think that not having penis is good. Alright, it's normal as well, but they don't think it. And they are always about the they are always in the sense of inferiority, that they lack penis, and or might be they were committing some kind of punishment or some kind of sin. Perhaps they were doing masturbation and their father or someone has caught them and cut their penis, and they got furious at their mother for not giving them penis, because she doesn't have that as well. So their mother is inferior as well. So she start hating entire women's sex, including herself. So clitoris is inferior, but that gives her masturbation. And but in culture and societies there is a shame and disgust about the feel of masturbation. So girls don't do masturbation, but they do. So what is penis envy? The internalization of feminine inferiority comes in penis envy. They admit in their mind and their heart that they are inferior to boys because they don't have penis, and they start losing their bond with mother. They just start hating their mother, and here the bond between them, the girl and the mother, starts diminishing. That love bond which was when she was little and breastfeeding, and makes her father libidinal object, because she thinks that her father has penis, and her father will give her penis. So she cannot have, in this slide, so she cannot have that penis because she is born now, and all other girls don't have penis as well, but she will have a sexual intercourse with her father and will have a baby. So the baby will have a penis, alright. So her desire will be fulfilled with the baby. So instead they look at father as erotic object. They see as to their father, as their father will fulfill their sexual desires, as to have a baby with father. So her mother becomes the rival and the jealous thing for her. So she start hating her mother. So we can say that in girls the negative Oedipus complex is happening. Alright, we can call the Oedipus complex of girls the negative Oedipus complex or feminine Oedipus complex. and when she desires her father and hate mother. So in this slide we will be giving the summary. I will be giving the summary between what is the sexual development for girls and boys. In first part, the castration complex happens and it has already been carried out. Her penis is already cut. Alright, but in boys the castration complex has not been carried out yet, but he is afraid of that complex. So the boy realized that girls has no penis and thank that they have penis. And in second step, in the Oedipus complex in girls, they hate mothers and bear father's child and try and threat of, but the girls have threat of losing nothing because they have cut their penis is cut and they have lost everything, and there is no fear for them to lose anything. So they are fearless now, but boys are fearless, but boys are fearful, alright, because of the castration of their penis. So there is always a threat for them to because they will lose penis someday, and they are living a fearful life, but girls are not living a fearful life because they have lost everything. So what happens to girl? Why girls I will tell you that what happens to girls. The Oedipus complex is why the Oedipus complex is repressed. If they don't have any fear of losing anything else, then why they don't simply marry their fathers and have a sexual bond with fathers and bear their kids in societies nowadays? So they don't have the strong superego because there is nothing to repress in them. So no motive to repress forbidden desire because they don't have penis. Their penis is cut, so they are not afraid of anything else. So there is no motive for them to repress their desire of marrying with their father, but they do so. Why they do so? It's the reason is unknown. So reason for Sigmund Freud says, I don't say that. Sigmund Freud says that women has low morality because the thing in they have no morality, no reason or justice, because their superego is not strong. Alright, their desire may come up into the conscious anytime. Alright, so there is no castration anxiety. They are not fearful of something. So how women form their unconscious, how they repress their desire of marrying their father? Why they do so? Women unconscious wishes are less repressed and more likely to rise into the unconscious. So that's the reason Sigmund Freud says that women are not fit to rule and they cannot shape the civilization, and it's up to you to research about that thing. I don't believe in that. Might be any feminist theorist would answer it better. So in the last slide I will conclude the whole thing, that why do females want fathers in their husbands but boys don't want mother in their girlfriends and wives or someone they are fulfilling their sexual desires with? Why it's happening? Women always stays in Oedipus complex forever. They forever stays in the Oedipus complex. They are not going out of the Oedipus complex. They are always desiring about their father, but because nothing ends for them, no castration complex is happening for them, because their castration complex has happened before this Oedipus complex. So what worst can happen anymore to them? So they carry on desiring their fathers. They learn to become non-incestuous, but they end up marrying men who are like their father, or they find in husbands qualities of their father. Feminist critics had to say a lot about Sigmund Freud's conclusion, about which I have covered in the last slide, that the women are not fit to rule, or they are uncivilized like that. So at the end of the video, I will say that Sigmund Freud points that women and girls and females are the dark continent. He cannot just simply discover them, what is happening in their mind. He just called them the dark continent. And that was all about the Sigmund Freud video. All the 3 parts has been uploaded on the YouTube channel of mine. Next video will be coming about Jacques Lacan, and hope that you will watch that video as well, so that you can understand the Sigmund Freud theory completely. Thank you. You can also subscribe to this channel. You can share, like and comment for further inquiry. Thank you.